Morning. I'd like to call the Executive Committee meeting for February 22nd to order. If we could get a roll call vote, please, or a roll call, sorry.
Mr. Lear, Mr. Hess, Ms. Polk,
Present.
Ms. Weber, present. Mr. Payton, present. Ms. Parker, present. Mr. Fairfield, present. Mr. Carrico, present. Mr. Featherling, present. Mr. Miller, present. Mr. Long, present. Mr. Hunter,
here via Zoom.
Mr. Wheeler,
Present.
Mr. Seroy, present. We have a quorum.
All those in favor of allowing Mr. Hunter to attend via Zoom while he recuperates, Mr. Seroy, second. Mr. Featherling, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. We'll definitely do that at the full board meeting, Steve, so we don't have to do it every meeting. So
thank you very much, everybody.
So approval of the minutes, or excuse me, public comment. Is there any public comment today? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes, January 25th, 2022. Mr. Payton, second. Mr. Fairfield. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We had something a little different today. Mr. Seroy had prepared a haiku for us today, and you want to share it? No, you're gonna. I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you. You forgot how it went. I think it's 575. Anyway, all right. So under this legislative agenda, and I did my best to try to organize this for everybody and get it to you ahead of time. It's a whirlwind at the legislatures. I mean, all the bills come in, and we rarely have an opportunity to respond in a quick fashion. It's a hodgepodge, and I think it's probably intentional. And I'm sure there's a lot of bills that are going to show up at 4 in the morning, just like they seem to do these days. So there may be other things to look at between now and the full board, but I need to get a list to our legislators on what we're going to support. So what I tried to do was to organize it. I think I pretty much got them in order by House bills and then Senate bills. Ones that I was able to do some research and recommend something, or our department heads had recommended a position based on their expertise in their departments. And you'll see those notes in there. And then there's a whole list of ones that I just had no opinion. I mean, and I wanted to leave it open to people to say, well, you know, here's one that I saw that we didn't have an opinion on. I feel strongly we should do X or Y. So know that door is open, but I figure we could run through the ones that have notes. And if there's something that is a question, or you don't agree with the recommendation to oppose or support, or to support with the amendment, you'll see some of those. And you know, if they amend it to include either us or something else, I'm recommending that. So I just need some marching orders from the executive committee on this. So we'll start running through it real quick, if that's okay. The first few are leftovers from the last legislative session. Senate Bill 1738 has to do with a planning commission, and if they object, then the county board of a township, excuse me, a planning commission of a township objects to something as far as a siding in their area. It requires a 3/4 override of the county board to override that objection. I believe currently, Del, that objection stands regardless. Is that correct? There is no 3/4 vote if there is a planning commission? That's one thing I needed to clarify for everybody.
I believe this amendment would actually remove that part of the statute. It's if a planning commission for a township objects, it forces a 3/4 majority vote of the county board. That's what's in the statute now.
Right.
What they're proposing is to remove that part of the statute.
Okay, so, and in such case, the county board shall not adopt zoning provisions which affect the unincorporated areas of the township except by the favorable vote of 3/4 of all the members of the county board.
Right.
Okay. And so you're supporting this out of the planning department?
Yes, because it would remove that, the ability to object and put the siding fully on the county board where it should be.
Okay, all right.
We currently do not have any townships with a planning commission.
Right, correct. All right, so we'll move on if there's anybody has any questions about that or feels differently than the support. Because we can vote on each one of them with a voice vote to include or not include. I just want to make sure you understand the process. We can dissect these if we want to. Next one, Senate Bill 1595. This one's kind of tricky because it's basically saying that if the chairman becomes vacant, the vice chairman shall serve as chairman, you know, to the remainder of the term, which is, you know, the way it is now. But it says that it has to be a majority of those elected to the board would vote. So what if there's a snowstorm? What if there's a pandemic? What if there's what if? A majority present is a majority present, and these meetings have to be on the first Monday in December. So what happens if that's a snow day? You know, I mean, there's a lot there that is not very well thought out, I don't think. So I would rather go with the majority present, not because if you could have the majority present, and that's not necessarily the will. So moving on, 1602, Senate Bill 1602. Planning Department opposes it in its current form, but it's not being called. It's basically one of those where it takes local control on siting from wind farms and gives it straight to Springfield for all intent and purposes. What follows after that is any fees, permitting fees, any of that application stuff. You see what I mean? So you go after this first, and then you go after the money second. So Senate Bill 1737. Obviously, I think we support that, that it's a permissive, that the auditor is also the accountant. I don't think we should discuss that because of the pending court case, but I think our position is still accurate with what it was before, that those two things are in direct conflict with each other without mitigation. Senate Bill 1899, that is a support recommendation, and that's per our Highway Department. Utilities do not locate their facilities in a timely manner and cause delays with no consequences. This is putting in consequences. And so I have experienced that myself since I've been here. So it's tough with the utilities. They kind of tell you what you're going to do, and this gives us a little more teeth. House Bill 811. This is a support recommendation. It basically says that we can publish on our website instead of a newspaper. I think that the way that new media works right now, it's an unnecessary expense, and you'll see this in different forms throughout. The reach that we have is substantial, and not just us, it's any governmental unit. So it's unnecessary expense and is permissive. So let's see here. Planning supports it because they know how much it costs to put a notice in the newspaper. The next one, HB 3566, it's a support recommendation. The county board that is responsible for funding the circuit clerk's office shall be considered a co-employer. I think that's absolutely essential. And we have some work to go through in the Criminal Justice Committee because a contract was just signed with a 21% increase over 4 years in that office without any of our consultation. That's substantial. You know, and granted, the employees are not making a whole lot of money, but we're still dealing with a situation. So we would, if we're going to be doing the budget, then we have to be sitting at the table doing the negotiations, and in a supportive manner with the circuit clerk.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you were not consulted. Mr. Lear was not consulted. Todd was not consulted. Steve McCarty and Anita weren't consulted regarding these raises?
No, we were not. And technically we don't have to be, but usually that's the way it works when you have budgets and people communicate.
But we're expected to pay for the raises, right?
Correct. Not expected to, mandated to.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
if we're going to pay, we'll be at the table. We need to negotiate on behalf of the taxpayers. That's our role. And so in this case, I hope this gets some legs. And it's been on there twice. This last time it didn't get called. This time we're hoping it does get called. House Bill 1846. I recommend we oppose that. That's the motor fuel tax law. You'll see it in a couple different forms, one for counties, one for municipalities. We're already the second highest gas taxed people in the United States in Illinois. Enough is enough. Okay, that's just my opinion. If you feel differently, let me know. But as much good as it would do to build roads, I think then they start calving that off and more chunks start going to Springfield if any history is a lesson. It may look good if you want to build a bunch of roads, but then you have to consider what it's going to look like in 10 years from now. So, and we're already being taxed to death. Wrong time to do this in this recession. Where are we at here? I'm sorry, I lost my place. House Bill 5 from Representative DeLuca. That's a support recommendation. Oh, yeah. Any expenditures from local government revenues shall be void if the General Assembly does not make necessary appropriations. It's a basically anti-unfunded mandate bill. So please, can we have more about like this? You know, that's why I like Representative DeLuca. Always have. House Bill 314. Let's see here. This is an oppose. And it basically says if a municipality does not allow cannabis sales in their town, it forbids a neighboring county or municipality to house it within 1.5 miles of their borders. And so I think that extra jurisdictional allows us to be able to vote and requires, I believe, a 4/5 override, maybe 3/4. But it's a super majority. As it stands now, that's the law. So there is a process currently in place to override an objection from a municipality. I think that's enough. Or else we wouldn't have counties, we would just have cities or vice versa. You know what I mean? There's rights on both sides. House Bill 2819, that's an oppose. Again, online, we should be able to post online. It's in a time when shrinking revenues and the state refuses to send us money that they traditionally have. It's a burden to keep publishing this stuff. When the information is easily obtainable and consumable online. House Bill 2474, revocation prohibited. This is basically saying that a state agency can't pull your license if you object to and refuse to comply with an executive order related to the pandemic. That was a big way that the governor was threatening providers, was removing your license. And as we learned, that might be okay for the first part of a pandemic. 2 years later, it's completely ridiculous and not what co-equal branches of government are supposed to be. So I don't want to give more power, and this actually tries to take some of that power back to the legislature. So House Bill 4296, that's an oppose. Basically, you can't conceal carry in a nature preserve. I just put down lawful trained gun owners aren't the problem. So in a nature preserve with somebody carrying a weapon, I mean, that's, I don't know. If you want to consider this differently, I oppose this. We don't need more regulations along these lines. And again, lawful trained gun owners aren't the problem. Yeah. Forest preserves, though. Yeah. House Bill 4378. This is a support recommendation. $25 million for mental health locally. Yes, 4370 fee. Last one on the bottom of that page. That's a support. It's $25 million, which is nowhere near what we need. That might do some good in Kankakee County. I'm not joking, but yeah, it's because it's sustained. So support it. It's a drop in the bucket, though. House Bill 4424. It's another one of those motor fuel ones. Oppose. They get enough. County's wind energy facility. This one is also not being called. Not being called. Yeah. I know that I and Will County objected the same day when we called down there to find out about this, because we had opposed this before in a different form. So I felt confident the board still felt the same way. So they're pulling that. They didn't realize they had stepped in it. House Bill 4454, drug treatment eligible. This is something I've actually heard about from other counties. Some places are using drug court for non-drug court related things. This is making it so the drugs have to be a primary reason that they're in the criminal system in the first place. You can't, somebody, can't have robbed a liquor store or whatever, and then they just happen to, when they take them down, they find drugs in their house and they offer them drug court. That's a problem. And it seems like some are using that as a diversion thing, and that's why I'm recommending we support it, and that's Jackie Haas's bill. So, and I think it's a good one. Because drug court is an important thing and we need to enhance it, but it's why use all the money that's supposed to be for people that have chemical addiction problems and alcohol addiction problems on people that are just trying to get rid of these offenses. It's not really fair to the people that need the help. FOIA, House Bill 4466. This one's kind of frightening, actually. Again, legislators who don't really think about stuff. Public body shall include its list of records available under the Act. That's fine. Plain text description of each of the types of categories of information of each field of each database of the public body. Absolutely not. No, ever. And I think it voids our cyber policy. I mean, you think about that. We'd have to give a roadmap to a hacker on where everything's at. And it would show them where the vulnerable points are. It's beyond me, and it's Kevin's just going, well, who thinks of this? We got the same thing from GIS. Think of all the databases they have. It's going to take them years and a lot of money to produce the architecture for those databases. Am I wrong? I mean, it's insane. And by the way, no money. They're not giving us money to do this. So it may sound like a good idea. You can provide some information, but this level of detail is dangerous, and it's almost like they don't know what hackers do, you know? So, House Bill 4489, GATA applicability. That was a support, basically. It's a DOT thing. It makes things a little bit smoother. Let's see here. House Bill 4527, Second Chance State reimagined. It's just another one of those lovely bills that keep coming out of Springfield that provide more rights to criminals than they do for those who are law-abiding citizens. It all sounds good until you're the victim of this system. So I strongly oppose that, and I recommend that as well. Enough's enough. House Bill 4604. That one is occupational safety. The basic change in this provides that a public employer that intentionally violates specified provisions may be assessed a civil penalty of not more than $10,000 per violation, rather than just $10,000. This is state OSHA, so we oppose that. Obviously, we don't want to see, you know, multiple violations, and it could be on the same piece of equipment, so it'd be very expensive for the counties. Usually, it's about compliance and not revenue, and I think this one's about revenue. So. House Bill 4615, carry out bag fee, plastic bags. They might as well include straws and dirty, nasty thoughts. Oppose this. This isn't a nanny state. I don't mind putting that in there. People can do what they want to do, and hopefully, and most of us are doing the right thing. We save the bags and reuse them. You know, I don't know a lot of people who just throw them down the street. You know,
By Walmart, they're all over the place.
Yeah. So so you want to support it? Okay, all right. Mr. Contrarian over there. No, that's not, no, hey, that's fine though. Yeah. Most people want to do the right thing, but they just don't want to be forced to do what somebody thinks the right thing is. House Bill 4632, this is Representative Haas's bill. It's the dyslexia bill. Support on that one for screening. I think it's a good bill. House Bill 4633, River's Edge Development, Kankakee. Don't believe it's been called yet, but that's a support. There's also another one in the Senate that is the mirror of this bill, and I would ask that we support those.
Is that Pat Joyce's bill?
This one is Jackie's bill, the House bill, and then Pat, either he has the Senate bill or somebody else is carrying it.
Yeah, he does have the Senate bill.
Yeah.
I read that.
We'll get to it in a minute, but I think you might be right. It should be Senator Joyce's. House Bill 4683, domestic battery. It's Representative Haas's bill. The penalty for aggravated domestic battery is a Class X felony, which the person shall be sentenced to a mandatory term of imprisonment, not less than 6 years and not more than 30 years. This is a support I'd left off there. I want to make sure that we saw that. I didn't put support on it, but hopefully that's the case. It's a big problem in Kankakee County. Strangulation is, you've heard just Jim Rowe talk about it a lot. We got a real problem here, and we shouldn't be making it easier for people to exert power over other people. House Bill 4684, because that's what it's about, if you listen to him. It's another one of Representative Haas's bills, criminal pre-trial detention. Sorry. Basically, the court enters an order for the detention of the defendant. The defendant shall be brought to trial on the offense for which the defendant is in detention. 120 days rather than what they wanted to do was it's 90 days. This one's a problem. I've talked to the sheriff about this. And by the way, I'm going to ask if the department heads, like the sheriff electeds, have some things they want to insert into this. We'll go to the full board with them. But sometimes it takes a year for DNA. What do you do? I mean, seriously, it's a year, and that's not our fault. That's their fault. So that's the backlog at the crime lab. So if you got to bring them even with 120 days, that's a problem. So it's funny how we have to change because they can't get their act together. House Bill 4698, COVID or healthcare decisions. Basically, it's a right of conscience, saying that you make your own decisions. They changed the Right of Conscience Act to include a pandemic. This is basically trying to put it back the other way, which is the way that it was originally entered into by the legislature somewhat 5 years ago, 6 years ago. House Bill 4707, cybercrime lab fee. It sounds like a good idea. Oppose it because it's in direct conflict with the other pro-criminal legislation passed. Due to those convicted of murder pay their fines. That's a legitimate question. You know, this is putting a fine on those convicted of murder. How many of those actually pay their fines? Because they're incarcerated for long periods of time. It's almost like they didn't think about the reality of this, you know? So, I don't know, if we thought it would maybe help speed things up with the crime lab, we might more inclined to invest in that, but there's no guarantee there. House Bill 4758, that's the Broadband Access Act. Because governmental units, they also have to be eligible in this. A lot of times we're the ones that are, Mr. Miller? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to mention that this legislation or proposed legislation does put some guardrails on how the funds could be managed, but there are some things, like you mentioned, that need to be amended, need to be adjusted. And the one that sticks out to me is that the way this is written, the bipartisan infrastructure law, BIL, from the federal government, the way this 4758 is written, it would make Illinois ineligible for those federal broadband funds. So there are some changes that need to be made, like you pointed out, allowing underserved areas, units of government to be eligible.
Yep.
Are big parts of that need to be amended.
Or counties. I mean, that's our big thing is if we're going to be doing these projects and looking at it and ushering them on behalf of the residents of the whole county, we should be eligible to receive those funds, right? Because we have the system set up to manage those funds and the GATA certification and everything else.
So with some amendments, then it
Right.
should be good.
It's kind of where I was going opposed, but you also got to do some amendments.
Mm-hmm.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay, just a head nod and then we'll vote. I'm trying to go as quick as I can. I know there's a lot of them. House Bill 4772. This is a support recommendation. If there's a $12 million or under cost to a project, it basically goes from a two-phase to a one-phase selection. There's still the bidding process, but it's on the design build side of it. So it does streamline things and doesn't force us to go, or the people that would be doing this, including us, to go through unnecessary steps for the amount of money we're talking about. House Bill 4784, the IDA rehab program, it's a support for the land bank. This is a funding mechanism for the land bank. I asked for that support. House Bill 4796, Sidewalk Vendor Access Act. I don't think it's a very smart approach. It basically says nobody can regulate vendors on the street. No municipalities, no counties. Health department? Meat on a stick, mystery meat on a stick. I don't know. It's, you know what I'm saying. It's that's problematic. That's what like farmers markets and areas are for. If you just have people setting up vendors on the streets everywhere, it kind of becomes problematic. You can't manage it. And then I'm sure they're all paying taxes. Yeah. So House Bill 4808. It's another Jackie Haas bill. Let's see here. You can read it, but it's a support recommendation. 3 or more pending charges of misdemeanor, battery. It basically puts some teeth back behind repeat offenders, and if they're going to be getting let out, maybe 3 strikes and we can not let you out. is kind of the thought process here. There's got to be something if they're going to leave the gate swinging. We got to have a way to shut it. So, House Bill 4809, obstructing justice. Basically, this is saying if you mess with a police officer's body camera and try to turn it off, that's obstructing justice. I didn't know that was a thing. Apparently it is. Yeah. House Bill 4830, County's Inspector General, basically saying that the Inspector General shall have jurisdiction over all county employees. And this Inspector General is somebody that we would have to hire or contract with by January 1st, 2023. So I'm sure it's at our expense. You know, Representative Marin would make sure of that, wouldn't he? Sorry. And I didn't think this kind of bill would come from him, but, and it's effective immediately. My opinion, oppose it. It infringes on the rights of the elected office holders, and it's without oversight. And it's extremely, you know, the damage could be substantial if there's a rogue, politically minded investigator that's trying to make a name for themselves. We've seen that movie, you know. I'd rather rely on ISP and the state's attorney and the sheriffs than another layer of unfunded, non-responsive to the locals or even the state people, you know, coming in here and providing that oversight. I mean, they can't even get an inspector general for themselves. Think about it. Now they want us to pay for one for us? It makes sense. Let's see here. 4833, House Bill 4833. It's a sex offender, no probation. That is Representative Haas. Amends the Unified Code of Corrections, provides that a period of probation, a term of periodic imprisonment, or conditional discharge shall not be imposed for felony offense that requires registration under the Sex Offender Regulation Act. That kind of speaks for itself. I have a feeling I know where that came from. Our state's attorney, I'll have to talk to him, but that sounds like Jim might have recommended that one. House Bill 4917, the impact mitigation, that's a recommendation from the Planning Department to support. House Bill 4966.
Yes.
Basically digital signatures on petitions. They want to make it so you can just send an email with a link and everybody can sign a petition, and it doesn't matter who they are or where they're from and all that other stuff. So I strongly oppose that personally. We need to get out and knock on doors and get signatures. You know, a present broken leg company included. You know, it's just part of the deal. The people need that. We can have mail-in voting, but mail-in petitions, I just see real problems, especially in Illinois on that one. House Bill 57, motor fuel revenue, another oppose, second in the nation. As far as taxes, House Bill 5102. I'm asking that we support if they amend to include Kankakee in this. It's basically impose a fee at the courthouse to pay for courthouse work, additions, new construction. They allowed that for Will County, and then they brought Kane County. Now they're bringing Kendall in. Well, why not us? The people know that we're working on the courthouse. It's no secret. The Attorney General was a very visible presence here for years, not so much anymore. So if that's okay, amend it to include Kankakee or oppose it. House Bill 5202, public convenience certification. That's an oppose. Sorry, my comments there. I still don't know why Representative Harper doesn't focus on her own district instead of coming down into Kankakee County and trying to speak for the people in Hopkins Park. She was not elected to be here, and I'm tempted to send her a map of her district because I think she forgot what it looks like. So,
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, permission to send a map, sorry. House Bill 5218. That's another broadband, support that one. Motor fuel tax, grade crossing. And that's an oppose. That's a recommendation. It's an increase to the amount that was taken out of MFT before it comes here. That's per mark. So they're taking that chunk out before they distribute it to the local level. 5313, snowplow mailbox citation. And I'll stand behind this. This is quite possibly the most idiotic bill I've ever seen. It says that if a person who, while operating a snowplow on state or local road or highway, hits a publicly owned, privately owned mailbox as a result of the person's act or omissions, shall be issued a citation on the person's driving record, provides that the person issued a citation may respond to the citation. What? So if we're out plowing and we hit a mailbox, we pay for the mailbox. You know, if that happens, we take care of it. I mean, who would you drive a plow if they're going to put points on your record, on your license? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Did you agree, Mark? Head nod? Okay, thank you. House Bill 5354, Behavioral Health Services. It's a Representative Haas bill. Support. 5416, motor fuel tax, suspend. Well, it may sound good. Hey, suspend motor fuel tax when it's over $100 a barrel, but then how do we fix any roads because we don't have any money? Again, who thought of that? Now you can suspend it, or maybe you cap it, but this is suspended. So, huh? Yeah, whose bill is that? Hamilton. 5404, public projects materials. It's basically saying that we have to use green materials in all of our buildings. I think it's a goal. I think sometimes it's the best practice for everything to be LEED certified, and we want to be there. But you're talking now, I don't even know the exponential cost of, you know, carbon neutral materials versus the other stuff that's through the roof. So it's a cost we can't burden here unless there's help from Springfield. I just put you do you and we'll do us. You know, they can do what they want. We'll do what we do, and we'll try to be responsible with it. House Bill 5532, land bank exemption. I say support it with an amendment that includes all land banks as defined as an entity. Land banks are not an entity in the bill right now. They need to put that in there, and then it works for me. House Bill 5538, oppose. Basically, that's what labor agreements are for. You can't legislate labor agreements. Senate bills. 2896, Consumer and Climate First Act, oppose. It's too long to read, but there's many reasons I say oppose it. You can obviously object and go a different direction. Senate Bill 2983. I don't think it'll see the light of day, but it's basically the right of health care law in the Senate, putting that back. But I think we should still support it because we supported, or we opposed when they changed it. So this is the reciprocity means that we support this bill, which brings it back to what the original right of healthcare conscience bill law was, which was you can't force somebody to do things that they're philosophically opposed to or religiously. Senate Bill 3012. All these don't have a recommendation. If you skip to Senate Bill 3043, that's River's Edge, Senator Joyce. That's the support. 3059 is a support. It basically, instead of, and I know we're good with it here, but death records need to be put through the voter rolls. And that this is basically saying putting death records through and who's going to do it. 3063, unfunded mandates. It's the same as what Representative DeLuca had. That's a support. Let's see here. There was just a couple more. Sorry. Senate Bill 3446. It's a few pages up. Amends the Environmental Barriers Act, creates the ADA Compliance Commission to establish best practices. With all due respect to Senator Resin, I think it's opposed, it's unnecessary, and a bureaucratic nightmare. We can't get a lot of these state agencies to even respond to us now. You're going to put another layer of non-responsiveness. The law is the law. ADA is pretty clear, you know. So while it's not perfect, I don't think creating another bureaucratic nightmare is the way to go about it. Sorry, other comments there I'll let stand. Especially the dysfunctional part. Senate Bill 3452, Land Bank Exemption, amend to include the Kankakee Regional Land Bank Authority with, so we support if they amend it. And I think there was just one more that I had, or a couple more. Yep, 3494. That was support with amendment and definitions. The planning department opposes it in its current form as the term billing permit fees has not been defined. It fails to mention other fees and as review, inspection, administrative fees. So they need to define it. So support it with the amendment in the you know, the definitions. Senate Bill 3633, oppose. It seems like a good idea on the surface, but considering all of the small jobs we do, culverts, ditches, this is unnecessary and a storage burden. Basically, it's saying that we must maintain documentation on the disposal of any demolition debris, clean or general, or uncontaminated soil generated during the demolition, repair, or enclosure of a building for a period of 3 years, identifying the hauler, blah, 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 blah. I mean, we got, what, 900 permits a year, so we got to have samples of everything. Where do we keep those? How do we file them? I mean, kind of like, why? But, so it's opposed because it is a burden that, again, is unfunded. And I think that was about it. Oh, here's one. Sorry. I did my best to cut them and paste in order. This one is 3717, Economic Development Commission. It would be opposed because it does nothing for small counties and regions. It's useless and cumbersome and non-impactful. It's basically saying that you've got to establish an economic development commission if you have a TIF, and they basically have a lot of authority to decide where money is going to be spent. I don't see that as a benefit at all, really. Although sometimes I disagree with some of those directions when money is expended when a TIF is closing and somebody just does something to do something instead of giving the money back. I'd rather see it go back. But 9 people, that's unwieldy in that environment. So, county judicial facilities fee, again, support, just add us. And 3868, bike pedestrian path funding, all for it. Planning department recommends it. That's, oop, here's one. State mandate. Okay, it's the same thing. It's the Mandates Act. I must have copied it instead of cut it. All right, that's all I had. Sorry for the verbose explanation, but I thought, you know, people had questions and the public should hear kind of what's going on, because you don't get a lot of that out there, unless you're on Capitol Facts. All right, any questions about any of those? It seems like we're kind of in line together. So is there a motion to approve this legislative agenda with the positions that have been noted? Mr. Featherling, Mr. Carrico, any comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you for this. I'll get it to our representatives and our lobbyists and release the hounds, as they say. Informational Services, Mr. Duval. Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. Over the weekend, we upgraded our email server. So you would have, if you were doing something on Sunday, you may have had an interruption of service for maybe 45 minutes. We try to do these things on long weekends and on off hours so we don't affect very many people. We're still going to affect the sheriff's department no matter what, because they're 24/7. But if you happen to be in at that time, you would have saw that what we had to do is apply some patches. The patches needed security patches. Those needed security patches required us to upgrade the server. At that time, I chose to virtualize the server. That made everything take longer than we normally do, but we're on the newest of what we could do. There was no cost to that, but it's something that needed to be done. Jason's going through the department now. I did the servers over the weekend. Jason's going to go through the departments to make sure those people internally are having everything. Everything seems to be successful. I told some of you board members there may be an interruption before. I didn't get to all of you. And lastly, I'm trying to follow a protocol that I recommended to you in the last meeting or last few meetings. I'm going to send you out a document that's important, but it's not something you need to be voted on. What it is, let's say, a cheat sheet for how to deal with security issues or anything to do with your email. After talking to Mr. Kiriko, he brought up in the last meeting that he would like to have some kind of document that would help other board members. I thought that's a reasonable request, so I put something together that would help you. It's very short. It talks about known things and how easily to make yourself aware and the simple steps that you can do to protect yourselves against the emails. But what I'm doing is what I'm telling you. If it's something that's going to come from our department or the county, we'll first tell you, and then it's going to come from a specific person. It'll not be from a generic account. There's things that you'll probably know, but maybe there's some things you hadn't been aware of. We've told you, but now I'm putting it in writing, so it'll be in front of you. So it's just a simple PDF. It's 3 pages. It's easy to read, large print. I like large print, so came from that point. If you have any questions, just let me know. I also have my phone number and Jason's phone number as an email as a contact. Most of you already contact us pre-meeting or whatever. Again, it's not anything that need to be voted on, but it's some guidelines to help you deal with things that may come up.
Is that why the VPN was down?
VPN shouldn't have been down.
All right.
If you do have an issue, that's something we need to talk to you
It
about.
could have been user error. Yeah. So it's very possible, but yeah, okay.
Can you, if you do have
Yeah,
an issue
we'll
with
talk.
your laptop, bring that to Jason?
Yeah. Anything for Kevin? Nope. We may call you back later, so don't. No, I'm just kidding. Health Department, Mr. Beavis, not here today. You see the stats in the paperwork there inside of your packet. We have a quarterly report from the Regional Superintendent of Schools. Is there a motion to accept and put on file?
Polk.
Mr. Fairfield, Ms. Polk, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I think we have something in here from the VAC. There's nothing in today? Okay. County Administrator report. Ms. Beckman, do you have anything today? Just a little.
Actually, for as busy as I've been, I really don't have a lot to share. I think a lot of stuff is ongoing that I don't necessarily discuss in public. Number one is all the labor contracts that we're currently working on, the coroner labor group, the FOP patrol, and then also just coming up this month is also corrections. They've been working directly with labor on the language portions, but it will be coming to the board in a select subcommittee here within the next few weeks. So quite a bit of work done. I tend to do a lot of forecasting and just return on investment analysis on those labor contracts. So that's kind of where my involvement comes. Openings. We've got 11 currently. It's the fewest amount since October. And actually, those over 30 days is, I think it's 9, and that's the lowest number we've had since last July. So we're seeing either some movement or we're just taking down positions. There are some that have been ongoing for quite some time. That bilingual client services rep at the public health department's been open since July. So clearly having some difficulty there. But overall, we continue to work at what we're doing and try to focus more on social media to try to build a little more visibility to those positions, and we're seeing some success there. And then obviously a large amount of time over the last 6 weeks on the RFQ processes for the architect, engineer, and construction manager RFQ, and then the social services and grant management, and that's going to be ongoing as we move forward with those over the next probably couple months. So that's where really it's been kind of a whirlwind. The last, I would say, 2 months has been crazy. But if anyone has any questions. Mr. Hunter.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anita, had any consideration been given to compensating staff who have bilingual expertise?
Well,
That's for consideration or discussion at some point.
this one is a public health department position, so they would be responsible for determining salary ranges, and whether that's included or not would be a question for Mr. Beavis, who unfortunately isn't here.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I know, for example, I was talking with Dan in the clerk's office, and I know he was really using his outreach expertise to seek and find bilingual staff, in as much as that the Hispanic population in the county, irrespective of what the census says, is growing. And I was wondering if there's any consideration had been given to compensating those individuals who have that particular skill set. That's something for you to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Anita today? Absolutely not. Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can.
Chairman, I'd like to thank you for the great, we were very prepared for our meetings with our contract, our preparers and planners and stuff. We had a lot of time had to go into preparing all that stuff to present to us. I'd like to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Very organized. We were very.
Thank you.
It was organized.
Yeah, it was kind of a,
Yeah.
that was a project.
Does a lot of
That was a lot.
Yeah.
It was. It's you guys get to see
The final.
like the final and getting there, and the hair being pulled out. I mean, this is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in uncharted waters here. A lot of stuff we got going on here. So we're trying to pull in expertise from all different areas to make sure we're not only doing things the right way procedurally, but then also what aren't we thinking about? What else is out there? I mean, we just don't have an echo chamber here. So it's that's the whole point of this process. And if it helps us ask the pointed questions when Anita did what she did to organize all of this stuff. Yeah. That even a county board member could understand it. No, I'm just kidding. Including me. I'm in that group too.
Can get it.
So, yeah. No, I appreciate it. Is there anything else for Anita? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, some openings. One of each of these. Clawson Park Drainage District, X-Line Creek Drainage District, McGilvery Special Drainage District, Moments Fire Protection District, and an ETSB Board, 911. Two openings on the Canavan Drainage District, Mantino Number 9 Drainage, and two on the Kankakee County Farmland Assessment Review Committee. Appointments. Appointments of Michael Hall to the Moments Fire Protection District, appointment of Bruce Parberg to the Regional Planning Commission, reappointment. That's a reappointment, isn't it? Chad, is Bruce Parberg a reappointment?
No.
Okay, the first one. Okay, all right, sorry. Reappointment of Bill Helm to the Bourbonnais Fire Protection District, and also Alice Argelin to the Bourbonnais Fire Protection District. Is there a motion to combine and approve there? Mr. Miller, second. Ms. Parker, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. New business. Amending section 2-24 of the Kankakee County Code. So, who else was here? Ms. Polk was here. Chad was here at the last census when the new board was sworn in, correct? That's when you were in 2012, right? I was here, and we didn't know what was going on that day. It was a whirlwind, but the way that the county board is there, you have terms of 4 years, 4 years, and 2 years, or 2, 4, and 4. So half the board is up for election each time. So at that organizational meeting, there's ping pong balls drawn, and you pull out, you say Group A, and it's defined in here, and I can't remember which it is, but we can go through that. So Group A would be the even districts, get the 442. Okay, whatever it says in here, we'll go through that. But that's the procedure. You do it at the meeting, you don't do it beforehand. So then you leave the meeting knowing which group you're in. Are you in a 4-year, 2-year district, or are you in a 2, 4, and 4? So as I looked at that, and I talked to Terry, Mr. Rowe as well, we just got to amend the dates, because if you look at the county code, it had all the old dates in there from 2012. So it's just cleaning it up to match what it needs to be for now. So it's pretty simple. There's nothing that has changed. We just have to do it. We have to change our code, so we're following it. So is there any questions or a motion to approve this one?
Polk.
Ms. Polk? Mr. Fairfield? Any other thoughts? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We also have to put the map and the meets and bounds in the resolution as well, so thanks, Del. You have this memorized, these meets and bounds? Okay. It's like 6 pages of take a left turn at the stop sign, you know. I'm sorry, it's like that. If you ever read those, it's amazing. All right, next one, and Anita kind of touched on these. There are no documents yet because we haven't created them in these next 2 items. So, you know, we've talked about the process. The interview team met with all of the candidates, and they recommended this did make it to Building and Grounds, correct? We did talk about it, right? That it was coming to this meeting, right? But they didn't vote on it there because the agenda was already out. I just want to make sure I got that correct. So we're coming here for this approval. Normally it would have went Building and Grounds here, but we don't want to wait another 2 months for me to be able to engage them to negotiate what an agreement might look like. So for this one, we put out the RFQ for a partner to help us manage all of these proposed building projects that we're looking at. But more importantly, on the front end, to be able to put a realistic cost to them so the board can make decisions on what they want to prioritize as far as critical infrastructure designed to save the taxpayers money over the long haul. Not immediately, because that's not the way infrastructure works, but over the long haul, we want to do things where we're taking COVID money and making it last 20, 30, 40 years. And so in order to do that, we got to kind of find out how much it costs, whatever that is. And we've talked about some of those. And then we got to rank them. And then we say, well, here's our budget number, and, well, we have to cut the line right there. Or we have to shuffle the deck. Or scale it back. Or whatever we have to do. So I just want to mention that, so in order to do that, we had the committee had recommended White & Company, after interviewing 3 qualified respondents, and a total of 5 had submitted. So we chose the 3 that were qualified to have a discussion, and then from there we narrowed in on White & Company. And I think that was we had a scoring system, so it wasn't just willy-nilly. You know, it was pretty methodical how we went through this process. And what we're doing is in that scoring system, the way the RFQ is written, if we can't get an agreement with number 1, then we move to number 2. And there was a second place and a third place. So I don't expect that to happen, but if it does, that's our leverage. Okay, I just want and number 2 was pretty solid as well. You know, so, and I think the committee that was part of this might agree. They were a good firm as well. So I'm just asking for that approval to start from this committee to start negotiating, Mr. Carrico. And it's Mr. Featherling, and if there's no details yet, that'll go back to the full board. Actually, I'm sorry, to go to finance when we understand what that is, what the amount of money is, and things like that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you give me a little background in terms of their skill sets?
Yeah, you know, it's really tough because it's incredibly broad and diverse. But well, they checked every box that we were looking for. People that had worked in corrections facilities, worked in courthouses. They were the lead, I believe, on the Joliet new courthouse there, on the design side of it. And they had, I mean, just every animal control facilities. You know, we're looking at an animal control facility. That's no secret. We've talked about that. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to ask that that be our number 1 priority, as long as it's not $25 million bucks. So, you know, it's within reason. So yeah, they're solid, and they did our space needs for us.
Oh,
so we do have. It's the same people that know how much space we need in the departments that we have. Now, as we start to go forward, they got that foot in the door. Steve?
Quite expensive then, huh? Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's White & Company. So their experience is broad and top level. And the good thing is also is they know that there's a difference between the Porsche and the Buick and then the Yugo. And in some cases, we're going Yugo because we're not a Porsche type tax base. We want to redo buildings rather than build from the ground up. So sensible allocation and deployment of these funds is kind of where we're at. We got to really drive down costs any way possible.
Yeah.
And in a time when costs are going absolutely through the roof. So we're playing chicken with inflation right now. So I think we might lose. So anyway, any other thoughts from anybody on that committee about this choice? I want to make sure that Mr. Featherling, go ahead.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that it was a really good interview, and I was involved in the process, and I really thought that they would give us a head start because they did our needs study already. They have all of that knowledge and paperwork and experience, and that was the second time I interviewed that company. I was very impressed.
Yeah,
they were very well qualified.
All right. Well, then we'll go with this. Do we have motion and second?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll get to work on this. I expected this, so I have a call set up for next week to start the process. The next item, approval of negotiating agreement with Rincon for social services and grant management. Very similar. We've talked about this. The county board has zero experience in social service programs. We work with the workforce board, but we don't really know what they do down on a nuts and bolts level. We work with all these organizations. We help do different things, and we're involved in different things, but we just don't have that expertise. And then we also don't have the human capital within the county government to set up a temporary bureaucracy, as if we could even fill those jobs, to manage this for us, because this is at risk. This is, if things go sideways and somebody doesn't do the right kind of paperwork or the money gets spent improperly, then we're on the hook as a county to pay that back to the Department of Treasury. So it's a double hit. And that would come out of the taxpayers' contribution here locally from their property taxes. We just can't have that. So what we did is, we put out this RFQ to look for someone to, we're just not going to hand over millions of dollars to somebody and they decide what to do with it. We are going to decide what we want to do, and they will manage it for us and go look for other grants that either they're eligible to receive, or that only we are eligible to receive. So we're trying to create that critical mass and then do all the data collection and the analytics to see what is working and what is not. We want to treat this like we're just big enough to, as a county, to have big city problems, and we're just small enough to not have the revenues to address it. And so we've got all these small non-for-profits and health departments and hospitals and everybody doing different things. Well, we got a petri dish here that we can kind of see what works for us. We're different, not because mom said so. We're special, not because mom said so. There's things here that don't exist elsewhere, and there's things that are just like everywhere else. So once we figure out what that is, and they're going to help us get to that point, we'll decide what our grants look like. We're going to release grants that address some of these things, that we talked about for the last year. Now it's time to start figuring out what that is and start getting the money into the programming that we expect results from. So, is there any other, did I tee that up correctly from the committee? All right, there was a perception out there that we were just going to hand money over to somebody else and they're going to decide what to do with it. That's not why we're here. We're here to gather information, make the best possible decisions, and then try to create an ecosystem with these services in Kankakee County where we can measure it and decide, well, what should we fund after this money is gone? I mean, it's staggering. And if we get 2 or 3 out of 10 that are winners, we've done good, because then we know where to focus in on and why those were successful. So I guess the first thing is get a motion on the floor. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Mr. Hunter and then Mrs. Weber with a second. Any discussion? Anybody that was part of those conversations?
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I'd like to that the questions that were posed to the CEO Eddie Barreto were quite extensive. Additionally, I've seen firsthand the extensive infrastructure which Rincon Family Services has. Additionally, the commitment that they have made in terms of the city of Kankakee, in terms of the Tyson building, the improvements for their location at Dwayne's Services at Greenwood and Court Street, the Urban Funeral Home on East Court Street, and additional things that they have done in terms of a capital investment, the increase of employees locally as well too. Their workforce is very diverse, and without being redundant again, the infrastructure they have is quite extensive.
So any other thoughts from the committee that interviewed? I failed to mention that they are, will be bonded, so that solves our, what happens if situation, if things go sideways. That was, they came with that solution. I thought that required some foresight. That's a level of protection that I would appreciate, and that would go into the contract, obviously. So basically, we have to define the scope of services, figure out the roadmap, and how they're going to be compensated. And both companies will be compensated. People don't do this stuff for free. To do these drawings and these cost estimates, they're going to be compensated. Again, that's ARPA/COVID money, lost revenue, or ARPA proper, depending on what it is. Like a big HVAC unit for all of the courthouse to fix the 1930 version we have on the roof over there now. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. That project would be expensive, but that is directly attributable to the, in my opinion, and we would vet it through Steve and Anita, but it's attributable to the ARPA side, not the lost revenue side. Now, doing ADA upgrades is lost revenue, not ARPA. But space needs, I mean, seriously, it's like you got to slice and dice this. And I'm hoping they're going to be a little forgiving, if you will, because how do I divide these big projects up into, okay, well, this half of the room was COVID and this half was ADA, when it's all mixed together. So these,
Going through the garbage.
it's a lot going on.
Recycle.
And by the way, hold on, because this is going to get wild here for the next year. So, I mean, it's a lot of work, and I appreciate your dedication, because no county board in Kankakee County has ever had something like this to tackle. You should, I feel fortunate that time has selected us, an opportunity. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be sweat equity involved. And so we have motion and second there. Basically, I just have to negotiate with them. A lot of times grants, people pay for the grant management out of the grant, depending on where it comes from. So expect some things like that. But there will be a cost to be our billing office, if you will, because we just don't have the HR capital in finance, or really anywhere else, to handle that part of it. It would be debilitating to track down 30 different sub-grantees. That's what they're going to do. So, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Sorry, so verbose. I felt like I had to get that out there because there's some misconceptions about what this role is going to be. They're an administrator, a coordinator, a relationship builder, a grant either monitor / data cruncher, but never the deciding factor on where this money goes. That's our responsibility, and we do that with our local taxpayers in mind. And residents, sorry. All right, anything else? Old business.
Yes, when will we be able to have our grand opening at the courthouse so I can get all that together?
I was thinking about that the other day, Ms. Polk. We're just getting ready to start tearing into the basement. And there is all kinds of ADA upgrades in the basement. So
Okay.
and once we get a timeline, because the last thing we had to work through was the minority-owned business part of this, to make sure that we are not just paying lip service to that, to actually go through that process and see if there's anybody locally that can be on these jobs. We have to do that part, and we want to, but then we'll be able to schedule the work, and then we'll know when the grand opening could be. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
I really would love to do it in June, but I have a feeling it'd probably be in the fall, because I just don't know where things are going. We got,
See ya. There went Russia. We just got hacked.
the power cord, it's unplugged. Oh, okay. Motion to adjourn?
Cyber.
All right, Ms. Parker, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. I'm not dodging